Hello, everyone. Mellissa Culbertson here with the Soul Connection. So tonight I have a guest on that I have met through my work, and we've known each other for several years now. We just got chit-chatting. I'm like, gosh, we've known each other for a long time here. So hi, Candy. So tonight we'll have Audrey on the show, so we can bring her up here. And my husband's going to be joining us too, just running, family errands with the kids. So, hey, Audrey, hello. So, I hear him. I hear the dogs barking too. So they'll be coming on here in a minute. So maybe we'll just give him a minute to get in here quick. But just a little quick note too, if anybody is interested in being on the podcast, if you watch the shows and you feel like you have a story to share, we all have a story to share, of course. Feel free to reach out to me and we'll get you on the show. So we're coming up in summertime. I do have pretty much booked through May here on my schedule as I look at it. So we're looking at June. So I do have some availability here in June. So, all right. So, Audrey, so we met 2017, you said?
Yeah, 2017.
Okay, so yeah, Audrey came to a reading. She had just recently lost her grandfather and was able to connect her with him. And then she came back and took my soul coaching class that I was doing at the time at the Captain Mary in East Dubuque. So you've always really inspired me with your faithfulness, for sure. Being a Christian myself, I just admired you. You're young to me. Like now I'm like, 40 something, like everybody's young. But I've always just really admired your faith and your just your openness, and you're just a real person. So I wanted to have you on because you have a lot to share with your life story. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Where to start? Let's see. I'm 40. I just turned 40 last month. I work in social work, so I do a lot of counseling of kids K through 5. I'm actually in a school setting right now, so I do kindergarten through 5th grade counseling, but I also have done counseling in adults and also in substance and a lot of inpatient and behavioral health. Which was really something that I started after I met you. So really going to school and being on that journey was really enlightening to me, just learning a lot about myself, and really made me lean on my faith and having faith that this is the path that God's put me on to help others and just help them in any kind of capacity that I can. I have one sister. She's older. She has 4 kids. I just recently lost my dad January of 2022. So been dealing with that and just kind of navigating life now without one parent is a little bit different. But yeah, we've just kind of been a close family. And I think finding you was really healing to me. When I lost my grandpa, I was really close to my grandpa. Yeah. And then just, coming to you for guidance throughout the last few years has really been helpful when I've been struggling, especially like when I'm in that space of what am I supposed to be doing? I know that there's change coming, or I can feel there's something happening, but I'm kind of stuck. So I think that that's kind of the biggest thing that I take away from anything that I've done with you, especially the soul coaching class. That was huge for me, just to really tap into my own self and the elements around me and how they can really be there for you if you just pay attention. And kind of it's all from creation and our creator. So I think it's just really enlightened me a lot more as I've gotten older, and something that I've always been into, but not really tapped into.
Yeah. It can help a lot. And, there's that fine line too. I feel like, being a Christian myself, when I discovered this ability, I was like, oh gosh, am I doing something against God? Like I didn't want to do anything against God. And Yeah. So is there any, like, do you have ever had any backlash of you coming to see me or anything like that ever occur?
I have. I mean, I've had people that have said to me, like, that's going against God, and you're not
Yeah.
supposed to know the future, and you're not supposed to dabble with witchcraft. Sometimes is what it gets referred to.
I'm not a witch. I don't do spells and things
And
like that.
like
FYI.
I pretty much have told people that's, I understand that, and I can totally understand their point of view as well. It made me nervous as well to first go, but I think that we also have prophets, and we had people in, the Bible that spoke of things to come, or were able to see things that not everybody could see, and were able to guide in a spiritual way. And I think that that's really what I look at it as. It's really helped me, especially with loss, like, realize that we don't lose people. They're not gone from us. They're just in another area of life. It's just kind of like a separate room that they're in. It's not like they're gone from our lives completely. And I think that that's probably been the most healing for me. Especially, I struggle a lot when people are like, give it to God, and people are like, if God's so good, why would he do this to me? Or why would they take them from me? And I think that it's really just enlightened me that God's plan was never for us to know heartache anyway. That wasn't, his plan wasn't originally for us to know sin anyway. So really, there's a lot of things that we could go through and judge on, but we're not the ultimate judge, right? So I think that the peace that it's brung to me, has really brought me a lot of clarity in that. Like, I don't feel like my life has been cursed because I've gone and got readings, or because I've done things, like that. I think that if anything, it's really kind of been a blessing to me, just in the way it's helped me heal in some of the toughest losses that I've endured. Because really, since knowing you, I've lost some really, really close people to me, and I don't know that I could have made that without being angry at God, without having that extra set of guidance and faith.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I think, I mean, there are people out there doing these types of things for the wrong reasons, that are, open themselves up to whatever. And if other people are drawn to that too, that's totally fine. I'm not like bashing them or anything. But
I always tell her that if she's doing the devil's work, he's gonna be pissed. Because she's bringing more people to God.
It's true, though. I mean, it really is. And I feel like if God didn't want me to be aware of what you offer, he wouldn't have led me to you. Right. And I feel like that with even my work that I do. Like, I feel called to the work that I do. I was in my 30s when I went back to school to get my master's. And I feel like it's because I needed so much of the life experience that I have to help the families and the kids that I do. Because until I lost, really, my grandpa was my first really hard loss for me. And until I endured that, I thought I understood, grief, but I really didn't. I mean, I've endured loss. I mean, I lost a really close friend in high school, and I really thought I understood it. I mean, it affected me my entire life up until now, but it really didn't affect me the way that my loss of my grandpa did, as far as like, there's life before and there's life after death, and the way that your life really does change from grief. And I think that I needed to experience a lot of things before being called into social work. So I feel the same is true about just a lot of the things that I've learned just from knowing you as well.
Yeah. And you had a friend, April, that took the class with me as well. And then, she ended up passing away too. And that girl had quite the story of her life as well. And all the things she endured, and losing her battle with cancer. And yeah, there's still some like meditations that I play at my soul coaching or my self-love classes that I've played throughout the years. And like, she'll just come to mind once in a while. I just think about our time together too. So yeah. What a neat person.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah. So, so let's see, you're really like involved with your church stuff too. Like, you taught like, Sunday school and things like that. And
I did. And it's funny because I did that for a really long time. I've been going to my church for 7 years, this last spring. And I just stopped doing the kids ministry last year when I lost my dad, actually. I took a break and I just haven't got back into it. But I feel like maybe that piece of my life was also like I was called to do that work for a while. And now there's kind of some new faces that are helping with kids ministry. But it's so refreshing to me because I'll have kids come up to me every week and they're like, when are you coming back to teach? And it's been over a year now that I've not taught. So the other cool thing is I have a lot of kids in my school that go to my church, so I can still connect to them through the school. And they know that, I'm someone they can come to. And in a public school setting, I will pray with them if they need it. They can come to me and talk to me about anything that's bothering them. So I really do feel like God puts me in places that I need to be when I need to be there. And I definitely feel like that in the school that I'm in.
You talk about, praying with your students and stuff too. And I remember you saying one time with somebody at work, like, oh, I'm praying for you. Well, I don't believe, and that's not my faith, but like, I want to say it to the world, like, how did you say it was?
I said, that's probably like, from my standpoint, that's like one of the greatest compliments I could do. That's one of the greatest things that I could do for you. And it's just whether you want, and she was kind of taken aback. I'm like, I never thought of it that way because, I'm not religious. I don't want religion involved. I'm like, you want something, you want me to be there to support you. This is how it is. And this is how,
Yeah. So I think, just being more inclusive or, just being open to those things where people are just so leery about things, nowadays.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you can show your faith and share it, and it's in love. So,
Yeah.
Hi, Deb. Welcome.
And it's funny too, because like I play K-Love in my office, which is Christian music, so kids are like, what is that? What is that music? And I'm like, oh, it's just something, soft to play. It's appropriate for kids. And you can sometimes just see the stress just melt away from a kid when they're sitting at my desk coloring with me. And it's like, they're just listening to this, worship music, but then they'll be like, I really like this, and some of them know it and they'll sing along because they go to church or it's really nice to know that like, even in dark places, God can still reach them, a lot of my kids are adopted or they live with families that struggle with addiction or they're living with their grandparents. I'm in a lower income school. So a lot of our kids are just their battles start at home before they even come to school. So being able to tell them that, empty that cup of worry in here and then fill your cup up with learning out there is a huge thing for me to be able to carry that weight for them and be able to be that safe place for them.
Yeah. Planting little seeds in your office every day.
Every day.
Yes. So, what made you get into like counseling? You went back to school and everything. You kind of shared a little bit about, some things, but what was the big draw?
It's actually kind of funny. My mom always wanted to get into social work and always talked about doing that, but she was, being a mom to a railroader, she was always home with my sister and I, and her schedule never really fit that. When I was in third grade, we went to family counseling and it really changed the dynamic of our family, how my family communicated, how we approached situations. Growing up, we never had an argument that didn't include the four of us sitting down and talking it out. And that's just how my parents led us. And I really learned a lot from that style of just communicating and being open and how much it matters that you communicate to each other, because if we don't, then those emotions get stuffed down and they later come out as behaviors. So I think just being a young child myself, and I was in 3rd grade when we went to counseling, but it stuck with me. And, you know, my parents, we moved around a lot, so we didn't always stick to going to church growing up. But whenever things got rough, that was our foundation. You know, when my dad felt like things were getting out of place or getting hectic, we need to get back to church. And that was always what he drew us back to. So having that foundation from the start from my parents, I think, was just a huge part of it. And then I think for social work, it's just something that, like, it was always in the back of my head, but like I was like, I don't really want to do that, you know. And then it just kept calling to me, like, people tell me I'm really good with my words. I offer great advice. And it's like, I applied for it at one time and I was denied. And then it just happened to get like an email about a hybrid program at Clark. And I was like, I'm just going to check this out, and then was accepted. And it just kind of really all fell together in a way that the only way I can explain it is a God thing.
Yeah.
Because timing, it did not make sense. Like, I lost a job and then was accepted to school. I'm like, this is not making sense. How am I going to do all this?
Yeah, God places where you need to be at the right times. And
and that adventure, I mean, school took me to Africa. I mean, it was an amazing experience. I went to Memphis and worked in schools down there, and it just really opened my eyes to how much heartache is out there in the world, and just how many different levels there are. And I mean, I'm 40. I love kids. I don't have kids of my own. And I feel like there's a reason that God hasn't done that in my life, because I couldn't pour into the kids the way I do if I was going home and taking care of my own family.
Right.
So I really feel like that's just part of my journey. Like, I tell my kids all the time, you guys are my kids. Like, I don't have kids because I have all of you.
Yes, that's awesome. Welcome, Phoenix and Tom. Thanks for coming on here tonight too. Talking about, like doing some, work in different places. Brent helped out with our youth at our church for a long time and did like different mission trips and, going and like, where did you guys went to a few different places.
Yeah, it was Charlotte, West Virginia. Was it? No, Charleston, West Virginia. And yeah, it was super similar to the heartache, the different thing where it's just like, we threw, like, at the end of the week, all the leftovers, we had a big community dinner and people come over and they just came and, just kind of seeing where, in Dubuque, it's probably in Dubuque, but not like to that level. Like she couldn't even tried to pull the kid's pants up over his diaper, but they just weren't big enough pants. That's all they were. And just like kids running around with no shoes. And, kids in gangs, it's scary. So it's just like, it was nice to be able to, and then when you started talking about God and why are you doing this and doing different things, some of them just kind of really tune in. They're sponges. And
I think some of them, that I've even experienced in my work, it's like I don't think that they've ever encountered that kind of a relationship. And really, when they really enter the presence of God, you can just see a difference in the way that they operate their life and the way that they just kind of approach things. It's been really cool. I've worked with the family, kind of reunifying a family. They're in the process of reunification when I met them, and mom is in the process of recovery, and just how well they have grown, how much they've grown and how much they rely on God, and just know that, like, it's okay to not be okay. Like, that's huge for somebody that's in recovery. And it's huge for her to know, like, she has a community support in her kids' school, in her church, in all these areas of life that are there to help her. And she's not walking it alone. That community support, I think, is huge for some people. And I do feel like there's so many people out there that just feel so alone and abandoned, even by the ones that care about them and love them.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, just, you're all of our parents have done the best we can. And
Yep.
as parents too, we've done the best that we can, but you just never know. Life happens. And yeah. I think when I don't know, I talked to you online because you had some of your own health issues going on, quite a scare. You've had quite the year with, losing your dad and your own health scare here recently. And then, talk about those things. And then you've had, a couple students pass away here, right? In your area and your
in our community.
Too.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
so just myself recently was hospitalized with pneumonia. I had E. coli, and then actually I ended up turning septic. So was hospitalized for sepsis actually. But the pneumonia was like a 3-inch mass in my lung, which was, my dad had lung cancer. So when we found my dad's cancer, it was stage 4 lung cancer. He was diagnosed December 14th and we lost him January 10th. So we had 27 days from diagnosis to death. And that I think we were still trying to process the whole diagnosis before losing him. And then just that whole trauma of that. So that was really scary for my family to experience because I think I'm kind of everyone's go-to person in my family.
Yes, you are.
Kind of like, oh no, now what? But yeah, then we had a student that passed away in December. She was 13 and a close friend of my nephew's. And then her boyfriend actually passed from an ATV accident about a month later.
Oh, wow.
So just a lot of heartache in our community and just a lot of grief going around our community. And I think it's just really opened my eyes to, like I said, I lost a good friend when I was a senior in high school. And really just being able to be honest with those kids, like telling them, a couple of them that I met with were just wanting the pain to go away, whatever. I just don't want to feel like this, and being able to be real raw and honest with them that it's not something that just goes away. I'm 40 and February still bothers me because that's what what month he passed away. You're never gonna be the same person that you were prior to losing your friend, because it's a huge shock. It's a huge trauma thing that happened to you, and you shouldn't want to be who you were before, right? You are changed because you know that person. So really letting them know, like, you have to feel through the grief. You can't go around it. And I think, what was that?
I just had a similar. I just to say, like, I had counseling when I when I was a senior. I had lost friends too, and God bless you, because with that counselors, like at that point in time, I was 17-year-old boy, and I cried when it happened, but I didn't let the feeling out. But it's like the counselors, like you, like she was able to. Ever since then, I know it's okay to cry as a guy. So
yep. And like one of the kids I talked to, she was having a really hard time just because some of the people that were with the friend when he passed after the ATV, there was some questions as to what happened that night. And I'm like, those questions are always going to be there. And you may or may not ever know the real answer or the truth. So it's really important that we don't focus on the death of them, right? They had a whole life before they lived. And we have to remember that. We can't focus on the loss, because then that really takes away from their life. We lose who they were in the loss. So I think being able to just really open up to people about that, like it's hard to not focus on the loss. I get that. I do. But if we focus solely on losing them and how we lost them and why did we lose them, we lose sight on why we had them and how long we had them and all the good things that we had with them. So really just trying to get them to understand, like, you can't go around it, you have to go through it, and letting them know that it's okay to feel that heavy emotion that they're feeling. And it probably hurts more than anything they've ever felt. Right. And that's okay. But where the real growth is going to come is going through it. And a lot of times I'll tell people, you're never going to be able to fix something if you just put a Band-Aid over it. Like when I counsel kids or adults, if you don't clean out the wound that's making it hurt. Right? So if we just keep putting a Band-Aid over it, it might heal, but it's going to still be infected underneath, right?
Yeah.
We actually have to clean the wound before we have to tend to it before it's going to heal.
Yeah. And that's one thing too. And I work with people doing my self-help classes is like, yeah, let's heal some of the other things in your life too, which is a lot when you're grieving too, to like go through different parts of your life or traumas and heal those. But it does affect the way you grieve too. There's a big part of that does affect your grief. And Dave says in the comments here, we never stop grieving. We find ways to distract ourselves. Yeah. I mean, you know, we see that a lot. How do people distract themselves? A lot of times it's alcohol, it's drugs, it's, not very positive things. And, you know, how do we change that too? And I'm sure like you probably see a lot of those situations in your work.
Yep. And, you know, that's really like for me, it just makes me think the one girl that I was talking to, she was best friends with both of them. Now she's in, and it's it's heartbreaking to me because, you know, now she's lost two of her best friends. So she's not wanting to go to school and really wanting to isolate and trying to get her to understand, like, if you're isolating, that's magnifying that loneliness and that's magnifying that feeling. And really being able to kind of enlighten her with that light of God, then, you know, like, that's not how you should be healing, but I want you to know that it's okay if you want to be alone, but also let me explain to you why I think it's good for you to be around people, like why it's good for you to be in school and why it's good for you to not be sitting at home and, you know, thinking about it and reminiscing and really ruminating on it. Because if you're keeping yourself busy and you're keeping yourself active, you're able to at least carry on a little bit. And really I think she's able to understand more. Like she was like, I've always thought of like something, a higher being or some kind, but there again, she was really angry with, if there's a God, why would he take two kids?
Yeah.
And you know, that is a hard thing to answer. It's especially hard when kids don't have any faith foundation or support at home.
Yeah. One thing I tell people too, when they talk about being angry at God, and I completely understand, I get it. And I'm not like putting anybody down because those are your feelings and they're valid.
Yeah.
But I remember hearing in church one time about like, you know, people always blame God for the bad things that happen, but they forget that he's the one that we should be going to for comfort. So that's what, you know, for me, that was my upbringing, was God was comfort, God was love.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just, you know, how do you flip that around and get people to see that? But, you know,
yeah, it takes a bit. I remember like, going back to those girls, like she was in my class.
Yep.
So when I went back to that Spanish class, it was just like the whole class was just quiet. It was just a quiet class. And then I remember there was something in my mind that said, screw this. And I was not bad, but I was pretty much the class clown. I know it's hard to believe for a lot of people. So I kept it and I kind of turned it up a notch. And then I don't know if they still give conduct scores, but she gave me a 1, like the best. Everybody else got 4s and 5s,
Really?
like the worst. I'm like, I don't even know how that happened, but I think it's because I was the one that like, hey, it was going to be quiet in a miserable class. And I'm just like, they don't want us to be that way, but it's hard at that age.
Yeah. Like even my nephew has said, you know, the hardest thing for him was going back to a classroom and that chair being empty and knowing like they should be in that chair or whatever. And he had a teacher that was like, we're going to just kind of mix things up a little bit. I don't want us to focus on that, but I want to make it so like we're not, you know, staring at the empty desk in the room either. Let's talk about it and let's get it out so that we all can experience and express how we're feeling. And to me, like having an educator that acknowledges that, that's huge for really how kids are going to heal. Yeah. And I think that that's just a huge part of, I think the way that adults show and express things makes a huge impact on the way that, you know, young kids are going to be able to handle it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, 8th grade is a really young age to lose a classmate. You know, like I said to them, I was a senior in high school and she got sick and just, they think she like aspirated in her sleep. And, you know, like I told them, it's not something that anyone ever plans for, but that's why we have to have faith, because if we have our faith, then we know that we're taken care of no matter what happens to us. We know that we're going to be provided for.
I got my 90-year-old grandma. She's got dementia and she just went and had a surgery that they weren't sure she's going to come through. And she's like, God's will be done. She's been always that way. God's will be done. If I go, I go. She's like, it's fine. She's in that place and she knows that, but she's a tough old bird.
Yeah, she is.
She pulls through so much stuff. It's like, oh.
Her faith is strong. Yeah. Yep. Yes. She was one of those people that, like, when we first met and I met her and I'm like, what is it about this lady and your grandpa too? They had huge faith. And I'm like, I want that, you know? So like, I mean, I had my own, but like that, like you meet people in your life too, where it's like, man, I want more of that. Or what do they have? I want what they have, you know?
Yeah. So cool. And, you know, losing my dad, a lot of people have been like that towards my mom. They don't understand how my mom can be doing so well, quote unquote. Yeah. And my mom said, 2 things. I know he's not suffering. He didn't have to suffer through treatment. And I know he's at peace and I know he's okay. And really, I think a big part of that was coming to you shortly. I mean, I had a reading scheduled the week that my dad passed.
Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh.
I'm not canceling it. I just kind of invited my mom and sister along. And, you know, when we came in, you're like, I feel like there's stuff going on. I'm like, yeah, he passed on Monday. Today's Friday and we're here.
Yeah. It was like a quick turnaround. Yeah. And I've had different families come in and do that. And I tell you what, like, they're so relieved that they did too. Like, you know, a week or 2 after the passing, they're like, is it too soon? And I always tell people, like, gauge it on how you feel. You know, it's not for me, it's for you. And, yeah, it's very healing. And I've even met with people, you know, families prior to their loved ones passing, met the loved ones, you know, and, you know, I've got one family that comes in an anniversary every year. The whole family practically comes and they connect with this young person that passed away that was ill. And it's just, wow. So, like, doing your work and knowing all the things, you know, like, it's still hard when you have your own grief, your own losses, and like, to lose a parent, like, I've been there too. It's hard. It just sucks. So what has worked for you, or what are you doing to help yourself?
I've really in the last year, I've gotten better at just setting boundaries. Like, my time is my time. I'm not answering my phone during this time.
He's tapping my shoulder.
It is hard. It's hard. Like, I mean, I tell my kids, I don't care what time it is. If it's 3 a.m. and you're struggling, call me. And I mean that. And I do really mean that. If a client called me, I would answer. And I do truly feel like, I mean, I had a girl call me last night at 9:15 at night. Whatever made her call me, I'm glad she did. But there are some things that, like, I tell my clients this from the start. I will never do more for your mental health than you're willing to do. I won't put more into your mental health than you do. So if I'm willing to meet you and do the work, then you've got to come and meet me and do the work too, because I can't fix it. You have to do the work. I can give you tools and I can help you and I can guide you, but I can't do it for you. So really, my biggest thing lately has been really accountability to myself, but also my clients' accountability. Because I do work with kids, I have a lot of parents that are like, I think I need you to see them another time a week. I see close to 40 kids a week now, and I can't fit anybody else in my schedule. I mean, and get all my notes done and stay on top of everything else that I have to do. I'm really only contracted for 25 kids a week. And I'm almost doubled. So I just tell parents, that's fine. We can increase sessions, but then I'm going to need you to come in as well. Because if I'm working with a kindergartner, there's things that need to be fixed at home as well. A kindergartner can't change everything and can't be the only piece of the problem. And it's so crazy. The minute I put any responsibility or accountability back on a parent, I usually don't hear back from them. And in the school I'm in, I a lot of times don't hear from parents. I'll hear from them on their assessment and then maybe not again unless the kid's really having problems. So realizing that the work that I'm doing is really going to benefit the kid more than anybody, and just really focusing and honing in on how can I teach this kid how to use these skills. A huge one, just for an example, is, using their body to communicate. I have a lot of kids whose families use their body to communicate with them. And I have to teach them, you can't do that in school. You can't do that in a social setting. That might be how your family communicates with you. Unfortunately, it's not right. And it's not, the best way for someone to communicate, but it doesn't mean that that's the only way that we can communicate. So really teaching them their autonomy, that they are in control of themselves and they don't necessarily have to follow a pattern of what's going on, and really that generational type of trauma that can follow just because my parent went through this and it's now being displayed into my life. So for me, self-care is huge. In the summer, you can find me out on the river. That's usually where I'm at, soaking up the sun. My dogs are huge. I love take my dogs for a walk, mess around and play with them. And really spending time with my family. My family fills my cup up a lot.
We got some pictures of your family here too. I don't want to forget these pictures. So if Dave can, pop some of your pictures up here too.
Yep, that's my dad and my sister and my mom and me. And my sister and I are not twins. We look an awful lot alike, but we are not twins.
Yes, you guys do. Yeah.
That's my friend April that we were talking about a little bit ago. She passed away at 39.
Yeah, she was a very nice person. Yeah. April.
That's my dad at church. I have no idea why I took that picture, but I took it in October. He passed away in January. So I just find it.
That's awesome picture.
I find it really peaceful, actually. I think my dad just looks so calm, like he's in his element there.
Yeah, praying and
that's my grandpa, quite the character. That's who I connected with first. 80 something in my mind's like a steel whatchamacallit. He used to call everyone either what's his face or whatchamacallit. So
and they both worked on the railroad too, because like when you first came to see me and I worked by like the train tracks, wasn't there something one night too with one of the readings?
Like in my reading, the trains were like, you're like, I don't know why all these trains are like, it was like train after train after train.
Okay, yeah.
This never happens. And I'm like, it's because I'm here. And my grandpa
That's so cool.
Like my grandpa was a huge train buff, and that was when you were in East Dubuque. And you're like, just swear the trains are never like this. And I was like, it's my grandpa. Like my grandpa, we always joke, my grandpa like lived and breathed the railroad. My dad like worked the railroad. It was like his job. My grandpa was like his life. So yeah, they definitely both were. I think my grandpa Mangler was really, really good to my dad. And I think they bonded a lot over that kind of stuff, just the railroad, and, they shared a lot in common there. And so, yeah.
Yeah. So let's see, what else did I say? Okay. So being so strong too, that, we talk about your faith and you getting your, strength from your faith, but yeah, you are a very strong person. A lot of things that you've been through that, that I know about and, we've talked about too. So, we got Bill Metz here leaving a comment, Nito Burrito. Is that somebody that you know?
I don't know. I don't know. Bill. Maybe he likes trains too.
Oh, okay. But yeah, we're, helping people on a daily basis. It takes a lot out of you, and especially working with kids. Like I can't imagine 40 children you work with. And I mean, that just goes to show you. And I know around here in the Dubuque area, like our counselors are booked out like 3 to 6 months. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So what is your take on all this too? Where do you get your strength and like your take on people needing mental health help?
I think that, I really appreciate people putting it out there more, like what they struggle with and sharing their story. And I think that's why I'm so open about my own, because if I'm going to counsel, and I really learned this through my social work classes, like if I have never gone through something, how can I really help someone through it or express, ways to get around or through something? Mm-hmm. And I really think that opened my eyes. Like if I struggle with something, how do I help someone else and guide someone else through it? So really I think my 3.5 years at school really made me grow a lot as a person. And I think just the work, like doing the soul coaching class, that really opened up my eyes to things that I was maybe holding on to that I needed to let go of and make space for new things. And if you are holding on so tightly to the past, how do you let go? How do you bring in things for the future? And I think that it's all kind of energy that we carry, and really just being able to acknowledge that, call it to light, and be mindful of it is really powerful. But sometimes we just need to be taught some of those things and shown that perspective. And even myself, I didn't realize how much energy was consuming my life from things from my past. And I tell a lot of people, like, if you suffer from depression, those are all those things you should have, could have, would have. It consumes you, and anxiety is the future. Maybe I might, is it going to work out? I don't know, whatever, fill in the blank. But if we are only focused on those two things, we really miss out on ourself, and that's the present, right? Like if you look at it as like siblings, it's like the younger brother that's nagging you is the depression from your past, and the older sister might be the anxiety of the future that you're worrying about. But then you're missing out on the here and now. You're missing out on yourself. And I think when we give attention to things that are negatively impacting, or even just the thoughts and the opinions of others, when we give that stuff so much of our energy, we really lose sight of our purpose and of our journey. And so I think that's something that I really just try to focus on, like, what is in your control, what is not in your control. And if it's not in your control, it shouldn't be consuming us. Does it? Yes. But how much of our time does it consume? And if we can't control it, we can't change it. Right.
Yeah.
It is what it is. We got to move on. So for me, I've really just learned I have to, when my body, especially, like, I do think, like, God commands us to rest. If I don't rest, he has shown me I will make you rest. And
I hear that.
He took me out, was like, you're done. I'm making you. I had a vacation planned. No vacation. Like, you're not taking vacation. You're going to stay home and rest, So I think that that's just kind of how life works. And in general too, if we're not listening, he's going to keep telling you. It's kind of like with my social work. Like, I went to school for business and marketing. I wasn't doing anything with that.
Yeah.
And it just kept coming back. Like, I want you to be serving people, and you need to be serving people. I need you to just be serving people. And when I'm doing that, I feel fulfilled, even though it's such an energy consuming occupation and it's something that takes a lot out of me. It really does fill me up to know that I'm helping people at the same time. And, to hear a client say that their life has changed because of something you said to them or something that you've shown them is powerful. And it's really, or like to have a client say, like, you know what, I don't think we need to meet this week. I'm feeling pretty good. Like, we could probably cut back on sessions, and then get to the point where, like, they're like, actually, I think maybe I could stop seeing you for a little while. That's huge. Like, I consider that a win. And I think it's just really amazing to be able to come along some people on their journey and offer that support in whatever capacity I can.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Have you ever been stumped with anything in your line of work?
Oh, Deb, thanks. That was a nice comment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I have had some kids that have stumped me.
She is, Deb. She is awesome. That's why I have her on.
I've got some kids that I've been working with that are in adoption. And adoption's a hard one for me because I was brought up from amazing parents. And some of the things that these kids deal with, it's really hard for me to relate to because I've never not felt loved or not felt like someone wanted me. So that those kids really hit me hard because I can't imagine being a kid and feeling like someone wouldn't want me.
Right.
Yeah.
So it just really pulls at me here, like feeling like I need to, really be good so that this person will want to adopt me. Like I have one girl, she just got adopted this will be my second year in the school here. And the first year I started was her first year with her family. And she just struggled with like stealing things and lying. And the mom was very much like she was her scapegoat. Anything that went wrong in the family, it was her fault. And anything that went wrong, she's the bad kid out of all the kids that are in the house. And just like seeing that look of defeat in her eyes, like nothing she does is ever going to be good enough. And that battle of like, I want my real family, but I also have this other family, and being so conflicted. Like being an 8 or 9-year-old child and being that conflicted in my own mind. So those are kids that I really, really do. I feel the same way. I would take
Kim, she would take them all in.
I tell our principal all the time, I'm like, can't I just build like a little house out back and they can all just come and live with me?
Yes.
But yeah, it is. That's probably been, I have a couple kids that I deal with that are adopted, or parents have had rights terminated. So they're full-time with like grandparents or family. And like just last week, I did an assessment for a little girl. She's in first grade. Well, she's 7, so first grade. And I said, what if you were going to come see Miss Audrey, what's something that you would like me to help you work on? And this is out of the mouths of babes. It just makes you so sad. She's like, what if I don't get to go back to my mom? That's what I want you to help me with. And it's just sad to hear that out of such a little mouth, like, what if I don't go back to my mom? Then what? Well, we'll work on that, And I know she's not, because her aunt's plan is to adopt them when her parents' rights are terminated in May.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of, those are like hard ones that I'm like,
Yeah, heart-wrenching, definitely.
Yeah. May's not that far away, but that's a long time when you're.
Yeah. And and like for me, sometimes I get kind of mad at the teachers because I'm like, don't talk to them that, like you're triggering some of these kids before they've even got in the building because of the way you talk to them, or because I'm like, some of them just, we've talked a lot this year with our admin about like having trauma-based training for the teachers, all the teachers, so they can understand, like, if they're coming from this background, they could be having behaviors and it doesn't even have anything to do with you. It's everything that they're thinking of outside of here that's affecting their life. That is why they can't sit and focus on what you're talking about up front in the classroom. Yeah. And like I tell kids all the time, we go through the hierarchy of needs. That's where I start. Have you ate? Have you slept? Are you hungry? What is it that you need from me first before I can ever expect you to go into a classroom and focus? Yeah. So some of our kids we have that are just like, they come in and they do a breakfast club, and then, they just get 10, 15 minutes of their cup being filled up from staff because that's literally what they need to be successful. So, yeah. But it's kind of a fun challenge because no day is ever the same. And I like that about my job, but there's some days that I go home and I'm just like, I don't know how I got in this job, but I know you're gonna help me get through it. And that's really when I really do rely on my faith. Cause like, if anybody asks me, how do you do that job? That, that's gotta be so heartbreaking. I could not do it without Jesus. I couldn't without my faith. there's no way I could. There's some nights I go home and I'm just like, I pray for the kids that I work with because like Brent said earlier, someone told him that they were going to pray for him. And that was a huge compliment. We had a service at church that was like, our pastor said something about, the least we can do is pray. No, that should be your first. That should be your go-to, that's not the last thing you can do. That's the first thing you can go to is take it to God and let it just be who you go to for your problems. So I tell my kids that too. Like, even if you don't think that he can hear you, just talk in your head and say like, God help me. Like that's what I tell them all the time. If you're struggling, just say that in your head. God help me.
Yep. So we have Dave here. I grew up in the system and I would have loved to have a teacher, someone who cares so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Deb, she is making a difference. And, that's one thing I have seen an uptick, like in my work and then at the meditation studio too, is with the last few years, teachers and social workers, coming to me for help and guidance and just some kind of direction too. April Gibson, yes, God help me. Yeah. So people that are helping others are getting wore out, the need is just getting to be so great. So it's like, my heart goes out to all of you guys doing that kind of stuff with the kids for sure. Yeah.
And in our, the company that I work for is Life Connections, and we're in all of I'm in Clinton, Iowa. So we are in all of Clinton schools, all of our elementary schools, all of our high school, all of our middle school. We're in Maquoketa, we're in Dubuque, we're in just any of this region. So I think it's phenomenal that we have that support because we never had that kind of support growing up. We had a guidance counselor, a school counselor, but really being able, we work side by side with the school counselors. If a school counselor sees a kid and it's beyond their realm of support, they refer them to me and they get the mental health support that they need. A parent doesn't have to come pick their kid up from school. I pull them from class. They're right here to be able to get what they need from me and then go back to class.
Nice. So you're right in the school then.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is my office. You're saying.
Oh, okay. I wondered. Okay, cool. Looks fun.
It is fun. Kids love coming in here. They're always like, what game are we playing today? I'm like, well, we have an activity first.
Cool.
If you finish that, then you can play a game. But I think it's really important that we're in the building because kids will, if I have a kid that's in crisis, I'm able to go to them in the building and literally work on a coping skill with them in the moment, teach it in real time. And it's so effective to see kids literally just melt in front of you because they're not only learning the tool with you, but then you are able to demonstrate it for them and they're able to see this is actually really helping me. And I am actually feeling better right now in this moment using this piece of thing that we've been working on in the office when I didn't need it. But now that I needed it, it's actually really doing what Miss Audrey told me it's going to do. So I think
huge.
It is huge because, we're telling them it's going to work, but then for them to actually see it work real time, it's like a light bulb goes on and they're like, oh yeah, that does actually help me. I do need to do those things.
That's got to build a huge amount of trust then too with you and that child. And
yeah. I've had kids that throw chairs. They get very dysregulated, and how we respond to that is going to make or change how they're going to respond in the future.
Yeah. That anger that they're feeling is pain and they're trying to figure that out. There's nothing, it's, and we make people feel ashamed for having those feelings. And it's like, well, it's valid given a lot of circumstances. I'm sure that you see your those kids going through.
Well, and even being able to point out, academically, if a child is struggling and they're seeing a spike in behaviors, a lot of it is They don't comprehend or they don't understand. And that's why they're reacting out. They don't understand the work that you're requesting from them. So instead of being embarrassed or being caught off guard, they're just going to behave in a way that's not going to make them do the work.
Yep.
So it's very, I like this line of work because it's very like puzzle piece, trying to fit the what's the missing piece, what is going on, what's driving the behavior, what's filling up from the back, like what am I missing? So it's kind of like a mystery that you're always trying to figure out what am I not getting in the puzzle.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing your light. We're going to come to a close here. But yeah, you are a bright, shining light. Keep doing what you're doing. And yeah, you're awesome. Like Deb said, yes. And now we all see it.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
So
if you had one message for the world, what would it be?
One message for the world. I'm going to say be the light, because that's really what we have to do. We have to be the light to lead those out of darkness.
Yep. Yeah. Use the things that you've been through in your life and,
sorry to laugh. I just heard a comedian talk about that when I was picking my son up before I came here.
Oh, yeah.
This is almost the exact same thing. That is so awesome.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. No, I'm so thankful our paths have crossed, and I do appreciate you coming on and sharing everything tonight. You're gonna reach a lot of people and touch lives. You already have here in the comments. So this will stream out to all kinds of platforms, and other people will be listening to it as well too. So yes, Jolene, wow. God bless. Yes,
God bless you all too. I appreciate you reaching out and having me. April, I love you too. She's that's my cousin. She's she told me she was going to tune in, so I'm glad she did. But yeah. I love you too. I love the work that you do, and I was honored to be asked to be a part of your podcast. I think it's amazing that you're reaching people in different ways and getting the work that you do out there. So I appreciate you and all the work you do.
Oh yeah, I meet so many awesome people, and I want to show the world the awesome people that I meet. So
I know,
that's what it's all about.
Yep.
Yes, so. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Audrey. You guys take care. Tell your family hello from me too. So
I will. Thanks, Mellissa.
Right. Yep. Thank you. Good night.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. What you got coming up?